feel like, okay, this is Guns N' Roses, and we're getting the band back together. Review of the new Guns N' Roses song, The General. I'm going to give it about a B minus. I think that it's not quite as good as their last release, which was called Perhaps, but it's better than everything on Chinese Democracy. It's not really as good as Use Your Illusions. It's not at that level. I'd say it's just a touch below that level of quality. But given that Guns N' Roses are in like their 60s now, I think this is a pretty solid effort. It's an unusual song, The General. It begins with what sounds like a kind of a tech influenced intro. I'm not crazy about the intro. Almost sounds like Korn, or um, you can hear like synth drums. But then I like that at least Slash's wah wah guitar comes in, and then I feel like, okay, this is Guns N' Roses, and we're getting the band back together. The song has, it's kind of a discordant melody, like discordant chord changes, which don't exactly suit Slash's usual approach to music. He's kind of more of a blues based guitarist, and that's what he builds off of. Whereas some of the music that we heard in Chinese Democracy was a little bit out there, was a little bit avant garde, and I think that's what this song is going for. So, on one hand, it's combining the kind of efforts to be new and different and relevant that we saw in Chinese Democracy, but we're also throwing Slash on there, which is good. Look, anytime Axl is teamed up with Slash, the product is superior to either one of them on their own, in my opinion. You know, Slash's side projects, without, of course, Velvet Revolver had a couple great songs. Um, I think, you know, put it this way: Slash and Axl together are greater than the sum of their parts, and include Duff in there too. Sometimes, we take the bass for granted, and I am also guilty of that. I don't recall, what the bass was doing in particular in this song. So I'm playing this super low quality because I don't want to get hit with a copyright strike, please. The lyrics are they seem to be discussing abuse, like child abuse. They're from the perspective of a son or a daughter. And abuse is, of course, a topic which Axl Rose has been focused on. He claims to have been abused by his parents when he was a kid. And, like, who am I to tell him that he wasn't? Although it was a little odd the way that he disclosed that, like he uncovered the memory in therapy. And in the context of the late 80s, that was like a big thing, that you're uncovering memories of abuse. But at any rate, it's a perfectly valid artistic choice to choose that as the theme for the song. And the vocals on The General sound good. I would even say the vocals for me sound better than on Perhaps. Because, for one thing, and this might be controversial, but Axl uses a slight distortion on his vocals, and I think it sounds good. I don't think there's anything wrong with using distorted vocals. You can think of like Nine Inch Nails as an example of a rock/industrial band that used that effect, or Marilyn Manson. And I think, speaking of Nine Inch Nails, I think that's maybe an influence that Axl wanted to, in the Chinese Democracy sessions, he thought maybe that was a direction he was going. But it gets back to the point that people don't want to hear Guns N' Roses like tech music. People who buy a Guns N' Roses record want to hear a rock record or something in that ballpark, maybe a ballad, maybe a slow song, maybe a fast song, but they don't really care about, they're not looking to hear techno. It's just totally irrelevant to what we want. I mean, I speak for myself, but like, there's certainly a diehard of Chinese Democracy fans out there, and I kind of just condemn that whole album. I can't believe that it got good reviews when it came out, and I think that must be some kind of corruption. Or so while I think this track is better than probably everything from Chinese Democracy, It reminds me of a track they released called Oh My God. I say they, it's basically, this was the Guns N' Roses iteration without Guns N' Roses, just Axl. But they released a track before the release of Chinese Democracy in like the year 2000 called Oh My God. And that track, in my opinion, was also better than like everything on Chinese Democracy. However, it got bad reviews in the press. I remember reading something in the New York Post that was like, new song is no Great Guns. And okay, it wasn't Great Guns, it wasn't Paradise City, but it was pretty good. It was interesting. It did have a techno element to it, but it was just a very rockin' tune, kind of like this one, kind of like the General. And as I say, Axl's vocals sound good with this distortion effect. He sounds good in the chorus, hitting extremely high notes, and it helps to have Slash and Duff in there. So there's no one element of the song that is great. However, at least it pulls together as a cohesive song that you can listen to from beginning to end without any like weird loud disruption, which is the case with many of the Chinese Democracy songs. So basically, my take is that I'm comparing this song positively to the Chinese Democracy songs. Another thing that ruined the Chinese Democracy songs was Axl's vocals, where he was kind of trying different things that just weren't really what the audience wanted, in my opinion. Again, I know there's a lot of Chinese Democracy fans out there. They tend to be like the most devoted Guns N' Roses fans, so there's a little bias there because the people that stuck with the band are the ones that are more disposed to kind of accept whatever they're putting out. And I respect the artistic vision that you can do something a little offbeat, which is the General is offbeat. But it's not really like a catchy song by traditional measures. It doesn't bother me, but I don't expect to hear this on the radio. I'm not really even sure what's going on with, rock radio these days, but it's not going to be this, whatever it is. And it kind of brings me to the thought that I don't hear any great songwriting happening with Guns N' Roses anymore because songwriting is difficult. And, a lot of bands that you wouldn't know of bring in professional songwriters, like Aerosmith, for example. On some of Aerosmith's best records, like Permanent Vacation and Pump, they had professional songwriters. Whereas here it's like Axl just kind of continues to pump out songs that are just in his own mind, but they're not necessarily translating to the audience as important, relevant, emotionally connecting songs. But I don't say that he needs to get a songwriter. I respect his artistic output and I take it for what it is. And I think this is in the right direction. I hear this live and it doesn't sound so hot, frankly, because the vocal performance live is not really getting it done. But again, that's okay. They're older. It's understandable. But they can get it done in the studio. That's why I'm always like happy to hear new material from Guns N' Roses because I don't see why they can't make great stuff in the studio at least. My name is Michael McCara. Thank you for watching. In the description, you can find my Twitter handle and visit my blog, michaelmccarablog.com. And finally, like and subscribe to my channel.
I've only heard what love can do.